This is the exact workflow DevOps engineer use to deploy APIs. So today, I'm going to show you how to build and containerize a simple API using FastAPI and Docker. And then we'll push it to our project on GitHub. So this is actually a very common workflow in re-engineering teams. So developers build application, version the code using Git, then store in platform like GitHub, and then package the application using containers so it can actually run consistently across different environments. So in this project, we are going to do three things. First, we create a simple fast API service. Second, we containerize the application using Docker. And finally, we'll push the project to GitHub so it can be used for our CI/CD pipeline later. So let's start by creating the project structure. So first of all, I'm going to open my Visual Studio. Now inside my Visual Studio, I'm going to create a folder. Yeah, open a folder, then desktop. I'm going to create a folder and name it. I'm going to name it FastAPI Docker Demo. So I'll select the folder. Now inside the folder, so I'm going to go ahead and open my terminal. So I'm going to switch up. I prefer to work on Git, so I'm going to switch on Git Bash. Then the first thing we are going to do is that we are going to create a file name. So we're going to create a file name main.py. Now inside main.py, so I'm going to impute my fast API code. So this is my fast API code. So there's something you need to understand here. Fast API is a modern Python framework for building APIs. So APIs are like the core of the most modern application because service communicate through HTTP endpoint. So it works like this from mobile app to API to database, or from web app to API to service. So API is what we use to talk to each other applications. So yeah. So we are going to create another file named requirements. .txt. So in this requirement.txt, this is where we are going to list all our dependencies. So we're going to list fast API. Then we're going to list beacon. So this is the dependency that is going to download for us. So we always like, it's a good place to put on a requirement. So yeah. So the next file we're going to create, we are going to create a Docker file. Now inside this Docker file, we are going to impute our Docker file code. So if you notice something here, you can see from Python 3.10. So basically it means that starts with a Linux container that already has Python installed in it. And we can see our working directory app, which means this start the working folder inside the container. Then we see copy our requirements.txt basically. Just copy the requirements so that I can download the dependencies. So basically copy the dependencies that listen to this container. So you can see pip run install iPhone R requirement.txt. So it's going to install the FastAPI, the unicorn, then inside the container. Then you see copy dot dot, meaning copy the app code, or copy, or say copy of project file inside the container. Then this basically start the container. So you start the FastAPI server when the containers are running, and you can see the ports we are using. So that's just it. So the next thing we are going to do is that we are going to dockerize the code, then we'll be able to test it locally and see how it's working. So after that, then we create a repository, then we push our code to our repository and store it there. So before, I think we should just carry on and build the image. But before you actually build any image, you have to make sure that your Docker desktop is actually up and running. So just get ahead and run the Docker. Oh, my bad. So what it's going to do is that it's going to, so using the Docker file that we have written here, so it's going to perform the job by dockerizing the application code, and we'll be able to see the image on our Docker desktop and be able to run the application. So let's start by running the container first. So fast API. So this code is now running. So we are going to visit the application on the website and see if it's actually working. So we're going to impute um, localhost 8080, sorry, 8000. So you can see that our application is basically running perfectly. So we containerized the application. So we wrote we wrote the fast API. We then implemented the requirements, which basically download the dependencies, and also, so yeah, that's what we did. And then we wrote a Docker file for it. We Dockerize it, and we start the container, and we'll be able to visit the website. And you can see the message "Hello from Fast API." That's basically what is actually inside our Fast API. If you inside our so when I say fast API, it's basically main.py. So you can actually say Hello server API. I can actually impute more word inside this, then rebuild it, then restart it, and yeah, so you can actually control what's on their website over there. So the next thing we are going to, so I'm going to show you the image. Yeah, that was a little bit stress, but yeah, you can actually see the image here running on our Docker desktop, and you can see the size 1.6 gig. We can actually reduce its size, obviously, but that's just another project for another next time. So we just leave it for now. And we can see the container. Because obviously it's not when you start the container, when you run the container, you can actually run the container from here if you don't want to run the command under there. So you just pull down this, then you pull 0, then you run it, and the container will start running. Image. Okay, sorry about that. So yes, it's not the content. You can see when you come back to the content over here, you should have it running over here. Or is it not running yet? Obviously, let's start it from terminal again because obviously it stopped. So let's run it again from the terminal. So it's not running. Oh, sorry. So it's now running. You can actually see running in our terminal over here. So yeah. So the next thing we are going to do is that we are going to create a GitHub repository. Then we git initialize it and push our code to our GitHub. If I'm going to go straight to my GitHub, so a lot of people don't understand. You need to, if you're an engineer, you need to learn how to work with your GitHub. Obviously, GitHub is where you store your code just in case anything happens to your computer. And from GitHub, we can build pipelines and deploy our application. So we're going to name this GitHub repo the same thing we name our application code. So we're going to name it this. Now there's something I will make this repo private. Then I'm not going to add readme file. I'm not going to add .gitignore. I'll add that on my local computer. So I'll go straight point and create a repository. So once I've created the repository, I will then git initialize on the application. So let me just stop the running. Control C, then I'll just do git init. So we have now initialized it. So that means, so basically getting it means Git can track changes to this project. So, and also developer use Git to manage versions, collaborate with teams, and track histories. So the next thing we are going to do, remember when we are creating a Git, the repository I say do not create Git ignore. So we're going to create it ourselves. So new people, I mean, if you don't know what .git ignore means, it's basically do not like push our sensitive information, never commit our secret environment variables on GitHub. So that's like the the security practice developers use when building the application code, so they can actually create .env is basically environment. You can store your sensitive information here and reference it on your code. But when you put it on .gitignore, when you push git push to your repository, gitignore will stop the environment from being pushed to GitHub, or anything you can actually put here will stop it from being to GitHub, which is like the security best practice. Not just developers, every engineer needs to know this. So it's not like, oh, I need to be security engineer for me to understand this security workflow. You don't need to be none of those things. You just need to understand the fundamentals, the practice, etc. So yeah, the next thing we are going to do is that we are going to git add then git commit. So once we have done git add, then we do git commit. I'll explain what this actually does, but let me just finish with git commit -m. Sorry, -m. Then we're going to impute our commit message. So yeah, sure. So we'll name it initial. We'll put the commitment initial FastAPI project, and we'll run the command. So now we have committed. So why we do this is actually this create like the first version of this project. So every commit becomes a checkpoint in this project's history. So we have created the repository. So now we need to Then the next thing we are going to do, we're going to git push it to our origin. Sorry. Mm. Then we run, going to do git push. So we have pushed this. So let's get our repository. So when we refresh it, you can see that our code have actually been pushed to GitHub, and you can see the commit message initial FastAPI project what we have actually worked on. So GitHub is something every engineer needs to understand how it works because company lives on GitHub. So when you get your first DevOps role or any kind of role you're working on, is cybersecurity, DevSecOps, developer SUI, anyone. So they're going to add in an organization, and in an organization, you're going to come across repositories. From repository, you see how teams works in repositories, and this main branch is actually the main branch. We have other branches actually, and understand how you work in collaboration with teams and different kind of organization, different kind of environments, etc. Understand how GitHub repository works, branches, pull, push, merge, and yeah, basically collaboration. This is like you can have literally 50 teams working on this repository, collaborating properly and everything. So a little bit of mistake can mess up the repository. So that's why we use like access rules. That's why we like restrict things. That's how you need to understand how things works. And yeah, and the best way to understand how things actually works is by actually building projects. There's no other way about it. Just by building projects, consuming content, reading theories, cannot actually train you or going after certificates. You have to purely focus on project for you to actually understand how team actually simulate all these things, and what they actually do and how they actually do it. So, and this is a simple project anyone can actually learn. It's going to teach you Docker. It's going to teach you about APIs. It's going to teach you about containerization. It's going to teach you about GitHub. It's going to teach you about Git and GitHub. It's going to teach you about the terminals. Expose you to like real lab projects. So, and also, yeah, and maybe in the next video, I'll show you how we can actually automate a CI/CD pipeline, automate testing and deployment straight to our deploy application straight to Kubernetes. I never knew I could do that project. And yeah, and also if you need these projects, you can literally watch this video and do the project. Or if you need hands-on training, or if you need guidance while doing this project, you can actually join my school community and you can get the full templates and actually build the project straight, because at the school what we actually focus on is practical and project. We don't do theory. We don't waste time. Once you join, you head straight to project, and that's how we do it. So yeah, thank you for watching.